Welcome to Sober Shenanigans. Real talk and real recovery, sharing stories, old and new, trying to stay on the right path and help others just like you. So feel our flow and get on with the show. Here's your hosts, Stoff and Primo.
Yeah, we are rock and rolling pretty good.
You guys are in charge.
All right. Well, welcome to Sober Shenanigans, real talk and real recovery. I'm your host, Stoff, and with me as usual is my main man, Primo. What's going on, Primo?
Guys, how's it going? How's it going?
Going good today. Today on the phone, live from Detroit area, Michigan, we have Raj, straight from the music business. How you doing today, Raj?
Good, sir. How you doing? It's good to be part of this today. Very excited about this.
Awesome. We can't wait to talk to you. Thanks for coming in. One of Raj's expertises is in the music business. He has a long resume in music and some in film. And what we want to cover today with Raj is the effect that music has on drug use and drug abuse, starting back a few years ago, and how maybe the labels or the artists themselves kind of glorify it and have started sort of a culture of the problem that we are all now trying to get over. So, Raj, if you want to go ahead and take it a little bit from here, why don't you give us a little explanation about what you're talking about and maybe a little about yourself?
Sure. So true that. So, I mean, obviously we're going to get together and talk about, music and the benefits of it and recovery and the negatives of recovery as well. I'm just a songwriter that, writes a few tunes here and there, trying to promote a cause that's pretty good, and always wanted to be getting signed to a record deal, but never happened at all whatsoever. So with that being said, I always had a passion for music going all the way back to my childhood, going back about age 13, 14, got my first guitar. And my idols were your classic rock stars, your Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, all these people that actually were very famous. Keith Moon, super cool drummer. And you can see the pattern, and I kind of gave it away. Lots of these people died from using drugs and alcohol. Look at, Bon Scott from AC/DC, alcohol overdose. And so when I was growing up, I really loved the music, and it got into my heart. So we had these anthems, ways of kind of getting rebellious and, showing to other people, like, this is me, my identity, my persona, how we dress with the jean jacket, having different rock concert t-shirts on at a young age. Even before I used any drugs at all, I was already wearing the attire of drug abusers, right? So we'll get you groomed for that operation. So then, discovering these people that passed away, I began listening to their music. And I think one of the first songs that kind of, got into my mind was Eric Clapton, Cocaine. Wasn't played very often on the air, but when it was like you kind of step back and go, are they really playing this? Like, they're really singing about cocaine. It's on the airs right now. That's actually a real thing. And it was.
Yeah, I think
And
we
so
tried to
that kinda
convince
got
our parents that they were doing something. It wasn't glorifying it or something. I just remember.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the band called Bad Company had a very iconic T-shirt. The Bad Company T-shirt had a big marijuana leaf on it. One of my friends in high school worked to school. I go, they're going to get you in big trouble. He goes, no, watch this. And the teacher goes, what is this T-shirt? He goes, it's Bad Company. It means that marijuana is bad.
Right?
He smiles at me. Yeah, that's what it means. So he wore his T-shirt that day, and everyone loved it. That's a really great T-shirt. He's smiling at everybody. Yeah, it's a great T-shirt.
Yeah, they're against that stuff, Mom and Dad. They don't like it.
Right. And it's called A Mixed Message, right?
Sure.
There's a famous rap song called White Lines, a very iconic rap song about cocaine. Listen to a song called White Lines, and he goes, do it, don't do it, do it, don't do it. And if you listen to the song, it says what you want it to say. If you're into doing drugs, it's telling you to do drugs. But if you're trying to stop, it's saying stop. So even in the songs themselves, we can kind of pick out and decipher what it means to us, right?
It's interesting, that particular song, White Lines by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Melly Mel has since said, since they recorded it, that they were actually doing blow while they recorded it, even though it was an anti-drug song.
Wow.
And if you remember, they had the sniff noise in there too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I remember it very well.
Do you know this song, Greg?
I know the song by heart. Yeah. Yeah, I had the
I know
album.
a song by heart. That's kind of funny. Well, how do you know it by heart? You have
Yeah.
to sit down and
It was the second rap album I ever bought, right behind Rapper's Delight by Sugar Hill Gang.
yeah.
I had the album Grandmaster
What-
Flash and the Furious Five
So,
with that song
so
on it.
apparently you weren't putting the drugs in your ears.
No, I was 12. At the time, I was
No.
probably 12 years old, and I thought, oh, these guys are saying don't do drugs, which is great because I was
Right.
12. I didn't want to do it, but you bring up a
No,
great point,
absolutely
and
not.
now all I'm thinking is I'm thinking of songs like Leonard Skinner, That Smell,
yeah.
Tom
Oh, yeah,
Petty,
that one.
Last
Yeah.
Dance with Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Of course, rap is now littered. In fact, when I was rapping in the 90s and touring around, weed was huge. In fact, my nickname was Big Reef back in the day, and
There you go.
it was part of the culture, and it was pushed hard by the record labels. They wanted that sort of debauchery because I still think, and I have been in the music business back in the day, that the labels prefer dead artists because they don't have to manage the personality at all. They just get to make the money.
Right.
Wow.
That's a good point. I mean, that's for what it is. I mean, obviously, there's a legacy also. Sales go up. I mean, it's iconic. I mean, you can go very recently. Look at Prince. I mean, if anyone told me they saw Prince having an overdose when he was in his heyday, I go, you're a liar. Like, no one saw Prince on their radar for overdose deaths.
Yeah.
Never
Even-
on
even
being
Michael
arrested.
Jackson.
But, yeah. So here's a guy that kind of lives that clean image, right? And so Michael Jackson and Prince have something very common. They never used any illegal drugs, but both are dead from drug overdoses. So how does that happen? Well, prescription drugs. That's how that happens. And so that's the kind of little gray area of, well, it comes from a doctor and I'm a rock star or I'm a famous musician. So obviously those rules don't apply to me.
Wow.
You're right, because they were both Jehovah's Witnesses,
Yeah.
weren't they?
Yeah, they're
think
anti-alcohol, anti-drugs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look at the king, guys. We haven't touched on the king.
Elvis.
Oh, you want to go there?
Well, I mean, if we're going to go there, we might as well go there.
Yeah, it wasn't just peanut butter and
Right.
banana sandwiches.
Oh,
What? Elvis Presley loved his mama.
Yeah.
The Memphis Mafia.
oh yeah. Loved him.
Yeah. So we see these people. And so if you want to be a rock star, you may not get a record deal. If you want to be a rock star, you may not go on tour. But what you can do is use the same drugs as they did to try to vicariously feel, what does it feel like to be a rock star? Right. And that's kind of the message there. I remember that, looking at other people that, how about this example? Heroin Diaries by Nikki Sixx. Okay. If you actually read that book, right? Not
Right.
one part of that book even says about here's an NA meeting option. Here's to see a therapist. The whole book is basically like heroin and me, and I'm a rock star. I'm having sex with the best people in the world. Unlimited drugs. I'm a rock star, and I'm using all these drugs. And then one day I decide, you know what? I almost died from heroin. I'm just going to stop. It's easy as that. I'm like, wow. That's all you got to do is just say I'm done using heroin. You just walk away.
Wow. I didn't
So it
know
was a
that.
really bad message. That book really bothered me a lot because if anyone was reading that book back in the day, it was like, wow, I want to be like him. Like, that is really cool. It made heroin really attractive.
Yeah, I read a lot of autobiographies, or I read the Jim Morrison, No One Gets Out of Here Alive. I read the other one by the Stones. And, I was always intrigued by the lifestyle for sure. And loved it. I loved the idea. The closest I could, I had no talent though. So the closest I could come to them is the drugs. This is the closest I could get.
Absolutely.
I never thought about how that actually made the fans feel closer to the artists because they could do the same drugs as them. They couldn't record like
Absolutely.
them or get a record deal like them or be famous like them. But hey, I could do the same drugs as them. And that probably helped spurn a lot of drug abuse and overdoses and problems feeding into the community. That's a great point, Raj. I never put that together.
I had hair like. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was mentioning one of my clients was a person that I had a chance to meet with, and she was age 15. And it's pretty young in my office for heroin addiction. Her father died of an overdose. I used to be his sponsor, so we'll call him Michael. Michael OD'd on heroin, and about 2 years later, Michael's ex-wife brings me his daughter, and I got a chance to have her in my office. And so I'm like, Mary, why are you using heroin? It killed your father. Don't you know what it's done to your life, what it's done to your mother? I mean, heroin has destroyed your family. And I'm looking at her, I go, why would you ever try this drug? Looks me dead in the eyes, and she goes, you know why? Because I always knew I wanted to try heroin to see what my father felt from it. I wanted to know what he felt. And that's why I was determined to use heroin as soon as possible. Because if I couldn't be with my dad because he's dead, I wanted to feel whatever he felt off that drug. I'm like, oh shit, that wasn't part of the plan. That wasn't how I see that would play out like that.
No, that's
So there's an
terrible.
attraction. So the legacy should be my dad died of an overdose. Drugs are bad. Don't do that. But the other message, the other part of that is, well, what did it feel like to use that drug? And why was it so important to him? And maybe I should try it just to know what it feels like to be my dad, be closer to my dad.
Wow.
That's you're diving deep there because you get to be exposed to that moment.
Yeah.
And as a therapist, counselor, it's a privilege to be able to discover that connection. I'm imagining it must be because I know that I certainly trained a few therapists in my days.
Right.
Raj, have you always been sober or did you get sober?
Oh, no. It's been a little bit of a legacy back and forth, right? So, I mean, obviously, I was sober before for 5 years, then fell off. Now I have over 18 years sober right now. So 18 years plus at this point. But no, I mean, so I've proven the point. I mean, so I got into drugs because I got into music. It was part of the lifestyle, but I was pretty good for a long period of time until a series of bad events happened. Your classic tragedy. The drummer in our band committed suicide. My girlfriend got pregnant, and a few bunch of other really bad things happened, and I was basically overwhelmed. And so I made up my mind to go use some heroin because I was in pain. It's called a painkiller. And I was dying from PTSD and my childhood trauma, which was never resolved. Had a fucked up family, lots of violence. And so the first time I used heroin, see, here's the thing about that heroin discussion is that I'm not going to glamorize it. What does heroin feel like? You know what heroin feels like? It feels like stupid. When you fail a test, that's what heroin feels like. You fall into a big mud puddle and you ruin your best shoes. That's what heroin feels like. I'm not going to discuss the first part of the equation because the tape all the way through. Heroin feels like stupid. Heroin feels like embarrassment, and heroin feels like shame. That's what it feels like to be on heroin.
Jeez.
That's
Who would choose that? That shows.
who would choose it over and over again. That's the other question.
Yeah.
Like once I can see maybe doing it once or not. Wasn't my thing. I had a cocaine issue possibly, but it wasn't really around my area where I grew up. So
yeah, I was lucky that I skipped the heroin too. I was into a lot of other things, but I didn't get caught up in heroin, thank God.
We weren't that deep in the hood over here on Sanibel.
Gotcha. Well, it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
The high cost of low living, it's all relative. It's all the same poison. It's all the same trauma. It's all the same feelings, right?
It sounds like I'd have got it there quicker if I'd have been doing that, maybe.
Yeah. It brings you to a faster bottom. All drugs are not the same. Using marijuana, you're not going to die. Using heroin, you probably will die. Using fentanyl, you probably will die.
Sure.
And so when people use hard drugs, for example, it is stat on people that use, especially women, 80% of women that use heroin, have extensive sexual abuse histories, not like minimal, not raped with a bad boyfriend, like really bad stuff, right? And so imagine a person who is deeply traumatized with PTSD, bad childhood molestation, all the stuff that you can think about. And then all of a sudden, they don't have any resources, no therapy, no support system. And someone hands them one of the most powerful painkillers known to man, and all that pain goes away. All that shame goes away. And in that moment of bliss, you escape from your reality. And then you tell somebody, well, don't do that again because it's going to ruin your life. Yeah, I'll deal with that later on. Right now, I'm loving this bliss right now. I'm loving my PTSD going away. I'm remembering I can drink not to think, and I can use not to feel.
Wow.
So there's your PTSD equation on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I've been around some PTSD because of a hurricane, and it's interesting when you spend a lot of time around that circle of different types of PTSD, but you can absorb some of that pain. It's it's difficult to stay unhealthy. I probably need to talk to therapists about that.
Oh, we got Raj on the line right now.
Just thought I'd throw that out there.
I'm off the clock right now, though.
I know. Tried to get a freebie in. How about a sample?
Look at you, Primo.
Yeah, there you go.
Always going for a deal, Primo.
Yeah, well,
There you go.
that's who I am. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the anthems are really strong. I got involved in the drug world and all that kind of stuff. And so you can see that, we as people, we try to sell recovery because it's a really important salesmanship job. But they do studies on AA hardliners, and they go to like an AA meeting, and they begin to discover, they studied them like a culture. I studied as an anthropologist. And people go to AA meetings and trying to sell this, behind, what happens when you go to your first meetings, and how about, you can have a mindset that I want to get help. It's really important. If a person with 10 and 20 years sober will then tell you there's only one way to get sober. You must go to 90 meetings in 90 days, have your 4-step done within 30 days, and do this and that. And on top of that, you must commit yourself to this program for the rest of your life. Very bad salesmanship. Also, don't listen to those songs that you really enjoy listening to. Yeah, you can't listen to those anymore. So we see very bad salesmanship, on people in early recovery. Our job is to make it as easy as possible to get and stay sober, not create all these hurdles and all these requirements of, change your music choices, change what you watch on TV. I mean, it can help for some people, but we want to do a better job selling it to people that it's a trial basis. If you like it, attraction rather than promotion, keep coming back.
Yeah, there's probably a wrench for every nut out there, but some of that black belt stuff that you are describing, yeah, it doesn't work for everybody. It wouldn't have worked for me because I was a little hard-headed. I needed
right.
I don't know. I needed to be softened up a little bit before you did the close, and so I'm a little bit different. But I see that in people too. But some people need that military approach. Not me, but it does happen.
We agree, and so we have the wide spectrum of having people come into the program. And, regarding, I've written some songs because all the negativity that's out there, the main song I was talking about was the F Addiction song. And so I got so sick of hearing every single rap song glamorizing drug usage, glamorizing drug selling. And in the old days in your 80s rap, the rappers like NW would talk about selling drugs all day long, but said, we don't take that stuff because that's for suckers. And now that's morphed over where your current rap artists that are very famous will tell you, I love selling drugs, I love using drugs, and this is actually really cool. So it's gotten a lot more darker because of that. So now if you're going to listen to rap music, you get a double whammy. Hey, you should sell drugs, and by the way, enjoy what you're selling.
1,000% true. On a very personal note, when I was rapping back in the 90s, right? So I was signed to Capitol Records early in the 90s, and then I realized right around 96, 97, everything got real gangster, real dark, because Run DMC would say they don't do that. That's for suckers, right? In the beginning, it was like, don't do it. No white lines. And then, I can remember like it was yesterday. I had a manager at the time named Tony Montello. He was a mob guy from Tampa. He went out to California. He came back. He said, listen, I was trying to get you a second record deal, but they're not signing anybody that doesn't push drugs and violence because a lot of these